focus on engaging with the government and the public on the importance of the public service, both nationally and provincially, and starting from all that our members contributed during the pandemic. I think to do this, we need to understand very well how our different sort of big pillar items are connected, whether it's contracting out, tax fairness, scientific integrity, and also our healthcare workers, both federally and in the provinces as well. In terms of contracting out, I would say outsourcing takes many forms, and even in research, which maybe we've talked about less, like the Department of National Defense is a 20-year, $1.6 billion program to give money to industry and academia to do research that dwarfs our internal budget. And that's not just the science and research jobs, that's all the engineering work, the technical work, and the project management that goes with it. It's the computing infrastructure, it's programming, purchasing, it's all of that. And so while we've had a more science-friendly government the last few years, unmuzzling was cheap, reinvesting in federal research institutions was not. And universities have a much bigger lobbying machine to attract federal research dollars than we do. So I'm concerned if we lose these government research institutions, they aren't coming back, and they'll take a lot of PIP's jobs with them, not just the scientists and researchers, and that'll be Canada's loss. So I think to keep those issues at the forefront, we need to keep our government relations team strong, including having members who can speak directly to those issues, speaking to decision makers. And finally, reaching out to our sort of big labor tent and playing our role as professionals within that, and looking at issues like artificial intelligence from a research lens, as well as, as a potential threat to some of our jobs. And thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a nice setting of the timing. I'm focusing on the process. I'll let you guys focus on the content. We've got Glenn next. You've got 2 minutes.
Hey folks, it's Glenn Scherning. Thank you to all the other candidates, and it's kind of a bit challenging because we've got quite a few very good candidates. It's a tough call. I'm not even sure who I'm voting for, to tell you the truth. The lead questions we were provided with in advance were your vision over the next 3 years. I find this kind of funny, and I don't have a prepared answer, so I'm just going to speak off the top of my head for this whole 2-hour period. I don't tend to think in terms of PIPs in terms of the next 3 years. The labor movement is a continuum. If you go back to the 1870s, when there was the first march, I think it was the printers or typesetters back in Toronto, which led to Labor Day parades and led to Labor Day being a national holiday that all political parties endorsed back in, I think it was 1892. I've got a copy of our first contract with the NRs. It was created in 1970, and we're ongoing. If you look at our bios of all the candidates, you'll quickly figure out I'm probably the oldest one. I suspect I am. I'm the one that's been involved in PIPs the longest. For me, it's just the current challenges as we're evolved. Like earlier, we heard the phrase contracting out. I really worry about return to work. I really worry about how our recruiting, training, retaining, and developing the next generation of PIPs is going to go, especially with COVID-19. And I'm not really focused on 3-year horizon per se. It's an ongoing thing. Anyways, so those will be my focuses, is basically look where we came from, look where we're going, and try and support succession planning and having a good union in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Again, great that you're sticking to the time. Sherry, you're up next.
Okay, thank you very much. I've spent many years working as a volunteer for a multitude of organizations. I've been on boards of directors before, Clarence Rock Library for 3 years. I was an area governor with Toastmasters. I was the president of the Highlands Curling Club for a few years, and I've been involved with many community groups. One of them was for 15 years on their board of directors. All of these have a common theme when you're working in the management of them as a director, which is you're looking to ensure that the goals that you are trying to achieve strategically are able to be implemented with the right resources at the lowest levels. I've been a bit concerned that in PIPs, perhaps some of the resourcing for the lowest levels has not been perhaps connected the way it ought to be. I am concerned when a member that I'm supposed to represent or have help with representing with an ERO at a second level grievance, that twice in a row the ERO has been reassigned to other things the morning of the grievance. We want to ensure that our members are represented in the workplace. And although I know many of my colleagues here work for the federal government, we have to keep in mind that PIPS also represents a number of individual employers elsewhere, the separate employers. And because of that, when we focus exclusively on the federal government, perhaps our one-size-fits-all policies need to have some carve-outs. So as an NCR executive, what I had tried to do was even to write a training program for us on how to write policy, because that's what I do in my day job. I work at international policy, national policy, and it's all about trying to connect the lower levels up to the strategic aims.
We're at time.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sherry. Thank you. And I will go now to Mark, please.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see some familiar faces I haven't got the opportunity to see in a long time in person, and I miss you guys. So what I see is the need to move in a different direction, because I consult directly with senior management and CRA, and even they have recently admitted the world we knew doesn't exist anymore. And the ability to communicate with our members has changed. There's no going down the hall to talk to somebody about an issue or take them out for a coffee unless you're willing to drive someplace and have that coffee. And a lot of my members have been telling me it's not as easy to find a steward now because they're not present in the workplace. So I think we need to find new ways to engage our members that fall in line with where we're going with this new reality, right? And quite frankly, I know that, and I've heard it not just from my own employer, but that we're losing some of our activists and our stewards because of the difficulties in engaging with the members and stuff. I think anytime you have the opportunity to speak to a member on any issue whatsoever, and I do this myself, if I'm providing information on anything at all, a lot of times I'll try to recruit them. And I think we need to take every opportunity we can to do that. I think we need to do a better job of engaging our members, because in this new reality where we used to put up posters and talk about upcoming like branch barbecues and other social events, that's not going to be something we can do so openly anymore. I used to do leaflet droppings for PIPs and stuff at our plant gate drops. I can't do those anymore. So we need to find more innovative ways that will help us in this new reality and this hybrid model that we're going to, where people will only be in the workplace, say, for 2 or 3 days a week. We're going to have to do some more really.
Mark.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Up next, we have Dave.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My vision, our vision for PIPS for the next few years, I think we need to continue to work towards meeting our strategic goals, providing value to our members, enhancing the influence of the Institute, and striving to be a model organization. There's no secret that the pandemic has changed our lives and the way we work. There are many issues we'll face, including, some form of vaccine mandate from the employer and likely some tough rounds of collective bargaining. But I feel the most significant issue, which will impact all of us, are the changing dynamics of the workplace. Certainly our members have proven they can succeed working remotely, but there's going to be a return to work for some, and providing a consistent and fair policy around that will be very important. Currently, we see some departments embracing flexible work arrangements and remote work, while others want people back at the office at their desk in their chairs. We're also seeing this disparity within a department, where employees working in larger cities are encouraged to work remote as much as feasible, while their coworkers located outside the city centers are being told they must return to work. We need to ensure that these policies are implemented fairly across departments and regionally. Within the Institute, the pandemic is clearly causing challenges around engaging, supporting, and meeting with members. We have also lost stewards and activists. and we need to find new ways to engage with them and build back our capacity within the Stewart network. I see significant challenges over the next 3 years, and we will need a strong leadership team to meet them head on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave. And next up is Stacy.
Bonjour, hello. Thank you. I'm here because I have a vision for PIPS and being part of the board of directors. We engage our members, as many as possible, but we sometimes seem to take for granted certain members that don't get appreciated. For example, the Retired Members Guild. Their wealth of experience could provide our stewards a very, very good chance at being better prepared to help our members. And as well, I'm looking for, in my vision, a board of directors that works collectively, professionally, to reach consensus to make everything better for our members. To me, an open and honest and transparent board would be the best thing for our members. As well, it would create a strong group that can advocate for our members, for the public service, and for Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Up next is Greg.
Miigwech, thank you very much, Lise. First of all, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which I am on is the unceded territory of the Beothuk and the Mi'kmaq, and acknowledging the Labrador and traditional homelands of the Inuit, and we strive to respect to the stewards of this land and the respect of the culture and the traditions of all of the culture of the lands. So for those that are not aware, I am Greg Scriver. I have been an NCR director and I filled that role for 4 years. So I believe I already know what it takes. I believe we're with the upcoming new board. There is going to be a lot of change on that board, and we still need to make sure that we have some experience. But on the other hand, I've always been a individual that has been open to new ideas. COVID-19 has shown us that technology, we need to change. We need to come up and be innovative. I know myself as chair of the ITSP committee, we were working with PIPS and staff to make sure that staff was able to quickly shift over to remote working. And we need to make sure that we can still continue to do that and to run with our members. As it comes with our membership, I know we're going to have challenges with some workers wanting to get back into the workplace while others are not going to want to work with the workplace, and we're all going to need to work together. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And I know that's what I've done all of my entire time. I have over 20 years experience in the labor movement. Of course, the last few years with PIPS. And as I mentioned, having the experience on the board, I think goes a long way to making sure that we will lead the Institute in the direction that we need to go over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And Wahid, you're next. Oh, you're on mute, yes. Wahid, your microphone is muted. Yep.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Je m'appelle Wahid Khan. I'm going to speak in English, so please allow me. To start with, I wish to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. I have had the pleasure of serving on the board for 3 years, and that has enabled me to get ready for the next 3 years. And that's why I'm offering my services to the members. I have participated in the development of the strategic goals and the plans and everything. So we will continue that. That is part of the process. But where I want to focus today is that PIPS must refocus on its members. Let's not forget that the raison d'etre of PIPS is our members. That is you, the members who are here today. It is not sufficient that you pay dues and we run the union for you. You must get value for your money. You must get the services and support that you need whenever you need it. We must help you build your careers that are professionally fulfilling and economically rewarding, commensurate with your qualifications and experience. We must give you timely and high quality representation if and when you run into workplace issues. If you are a volunteer like a steward or an executive, you must get the support you may need to help our members in the workplace. You are the backbone of your union colleagues. You must be in the driver's seat. That means that the decisions we make at the board must be transparent. You must not only know the decisions that we make, but also the rationale why we are making those decisions. Transparency, accountability are extremely, extremely important.
We are at time, Wahid.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. La première des questions un peu nouvelles, si je peux dire, va être en français. Et nous allons aller, comme prévu, dans le même ordre que les énoncés d'une vision. Alors, je vais vous lire la question. Je vais la lire 2 fois. Et ensuite, on va commencer avec Matt pour les réponses. Donc, la question, c'est quelles conditions voudriez-vous voir avant d'appuyer un retour au travail au bureau, en présentiel, comme on dit? Alors, quelles conditions voudriez-vous voir avant d'appuyer un retour au travail en présentiel? Un rappel que vous avez seulement 90 secondes pour celle-ci. Et ce que je vais faire, c'est que je vais vous donner un signal de 5 secondes, comme ça, avec la main, lorsque c'est le temps de terminer. Matt, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. So I'd say first we need to acknowledge that for many of our employees, working remotely was never an option, whether it's our healthcare workers, people who had animals to tend and experiments and what have you, or just simply working on very classified materials. One of the things that's very much frustrated me is that, well, my day job has become modeling in support of the military to understand their risks of returning to the office and operating. The civilian side of our department has been far less interested in asking us those same questions than the government as a whole, and getting sort of straightforward answers on things like, what do you consider to be a well-ventilated office? There doesn't seem to be an office. There doesn't seem to be an answer there. So yeah, we need to understand what science, if any, they're basing those decisions on for sure. I would also say that the vaccine mandate is a positive step forward, understanding there are valid human rights exemptions, but yeah, part of keeping each other safe is taking the steps we can all take to keep each other safe. And lastly, I think we need to be careful that this isn't just used as a further excuse to move us into activity-based workspaces, which will have all sorts of other mental health impacts and other cause other concerns for our members. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Next up, Glenn. Oh, sorry, I might need to unmute you there. I muted you by accident earlier on. Try that. So Glenn, there you go.
Okay, I just want to confirm. So the question was, I missed it for technical reasons, but from Matt's response, I'm guessing the question's related to return to work.
Yes, I can read it again en français. Quelles conditions voudriez-vous voir avant d'appuyer un retour au travail au bureau? You're on.
Difficult question. What conditions? It's going to be challenging. I can remember meeting with senior management back in April 1 of 2020, and back then everyone assumed we were going to be back in the workplace by September 1st, 2020-ish. I've been flabbergasted by the diversity of opinions on issues like vaccines within our own members. I was quite surprised. I'm estimating that between 5 and 10% of us are anti-vaxxers or some variant of that. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be very hard on our stewards and our workplace health and safety committees. We're going to see people who are under stress because they're worried about catching COVID. We're going to see people that are under stress because the return to the work environment is going to be a challenge that maybe they don't want to embrace. I'm worried about the employer moving towards, in D&D at least, they're talking about dedicated offices, not dedicated cubicles, where you have a locker in a building and you share a cubicle. I worry about hygiene. But essentially what it's going to be is a lot of work for our members as we try and help, or basically our stewards especially, as we try and help our members who are going to be under stress. In terms of what conditions do I want to see met, we can work with management on our issues, but we don't have the full ability to implement our conditions. We just have to work with them. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you, Glenn. Next up is Sherry. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I agree quite actually a bit with what Matt has been saying about the modeling and efforts to get ahead and understand what we're dealing with COVID. Myself, actually, I've been in the workplace now for 5 months, almost continuously. And many of our members also have been in the workplace throughout this as well, especially our healthcare workers who have been dealing with the front end of it and have also dealt with the burdens of pushing through the pandemic and the manning crises that they're dealing with. From a policy perspective, what I would like to see is a framework that can encompass, that is flexible enough to handle all of the workplaces, the varieties that we deal with, whether it's shift work, whether it's part-time, whether it's some days in the office or out, that can deal with changing levels. We need a framework that's going to be flexible enough, but can also respect the members' own internal risks and their own personal health risks. This isn't going to be easy. It's going to be hard. Flexibility is going to be important, but a lot of communication is needed for us to be able to hear and understand what our members need and what they want so that they can feel safe to return back to the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And next up, we have Mark.
Hi there. I actually consult with my employer on this, and one of the things that we've brought forward is very clear. We want to see a full lifting of the PHAC restrictions, the mask and distancing requirements. We want to make sure that all OSH requirements are met and that there is no reduction or, them trying to get around those issues, as well as building emergency officers and such. We want to make sure that our members feel safe. We are in discussions with the management about the anti-vaxxers and what that's going to lead to. But we do, and any forward-looking plan will have to include some working from home. They really have to step up with the accommodations and recognize the accommodations that are in place and the ones that are going to come as a result of those people who cannot get the vaccine for medical or religious reasons. We really want to make sure that our people are going to be safe, and that when I say that office is safe, they could believe me, and they believe it enough that they're okay going in without fear. I don't want anybody to return to work who's still scared. I do know a bunch of people who are immune compromised and call me once a month almost, what's going on, and I give them regular updates because I do meet with my employer on a regular basis with regard to the return to work plan. We're staging our plan to return once PHAC has lifted the restrictions, and then we're going to look at triggers.
We're at time, Mark. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave, you're up next.
Great. Thank you. I think, for it to be safe to return to work, any policies that are implemented, they need to follow the science. They need to be following federal, provincial health recommendations. Ensure that our occupational health and safety committees are consulted and involved with the return to work. I also agree that, they're going to have to be flexible. And if there is a vaccine mandate, that, there are accommodations for those that require them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We have Stacy up next.
With these, I agree with most of the previous speakers. I agree that we do need to follow the science, because that will indicate whether or not it's safe for our members. We need to be flexible to understand where our members are coming from, and to also take into consideration their mental health and how fears they may have of returning to an unsafe workplace needs to be taken into consideration. We also need to take into consideration that we need to be flexible to allow for working from home, where some departments actually don't allow that or demand that they have to be on the work site. So we need to work towards making it more accommodating for those that would rather work from home, that would rather work on a part-time at work and at home, or those that actually can work from the workplace. But all in all, it has to be safe for our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Greg, you're up next.
Thank you, McVitch. So I think one of the first things that we have to make sure that we are looking at is the the policies for social distancing and all that. We all have been doing it for 18 months. But I think, making sure that the OSH committees for each of the buildings and the health and safety are involved to make sure that we have the proper protocols and are following the guidelines. The other most important thing, I think, for any employer is for us to be involved at the advisory council or the AC through consultation, so that each of the consultation presidents know exactly where the institute stands, but also more importantly, that they have that direct contact with each of the departments, so that they're speaking on behalf of the institute, but also speaking on behalf of our 60,000 members. And of course, 30,000 of those are in the NCR region. So making sure that we have the proper protection before anybody wants to go back, but also making sure that workers that are maybe have compromised in immune systems or anything else that can't return to the office, that there are telework agreements in place for each of the departments. We know that certain departments are probably going to have to struggle with some of that. But still making sure that the employee, our members are safe and feel safe to return to the workplace should they choose to, or maybe have a hybrid approach where they're working 2 or 3 days at home and they can work in the office those other days. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Greg. Wahid, you are next on this question and last.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I, of course, as I'm saying my own things, I listen to my colleagues and they are such good ideas. In 2020, March, I came back from vacation and I sent a message to the president of PIPS to say that there is a pandemic and we need to take action. We cannot let it go. It's urgent. I also sent a message to my deputy minister to say we are in the pandemic. So this is just to say that I've been involved in dealing with the pandemic and with the employer right from the beginning. And I have been promoting a gradual, cautious, flexible, and phased approach to return to workplaces. We have very diverse memberships. We have members who can continue to work from home, and we have members who never worked from home because the jobs they had was such that, they never went home. They kept working on site. So we have a very wide variety, and that's why our approach has to be flexible, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. The health and safety of our members is of paramount importance for us. We must make sure that when our members are required to come to the workplace, they have a safe workplace to come to, and it's also safe for them to live. So it's not just that you come to work and it is safe, but it's also that you're not increasing the risk for your family members. That's very important. We must create a new
Time is up,
caring.
Wahid. Thank you. Sorry. It's painful, but we have to go through with it. All right, so I'm noticing some things coming through the chat. Please remember that there will be no questions from the floor tonight, but some of the questions that you're bringing up may be addressed in other town halls. The second question this evening, we're scrambling the order, so I'm just going to let you know, Sherry, that you're first up on this one. And the question is, again, I will read it twice. Do you think PIPS should participate in truth and reconciliation actions? And if so, how would you start and where would you start? Again, do you think PIPS should participate in truth and reconciliation actions? And if so, how would you start and where would you start? Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to whoever posed that question. Truth and reconciliation is a significant issue that we are dealing with nationally as a country. And I think many of us are learning our own history painfully about the harms and problems that we have caused to our fellow Canadians in the past. I think that PIPS, as a union, as a leader, can participate in the national discourse and can help with getting past some of these painful practices that have been done in the past, and yes, sometimes do carry on. I think a good first start would be perhaps that we link in to reading the actual Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations, and perhaps considering having our own panel internal to PIPS that can look at this. part of this is that we have our own members who have been affected by this. We have so many members across this country, and yet part of the pain can come from our own personnel, our understanding that we, PIPs in the past, had participated in, for example, the residential school system in supporting that. So we need to look at our own past and move forward into understanding how we can make amends for the errors of our own ways in the past. So I
Time is
think
up,
it's a
Sherry.
long issue.
Thank you. And our second speaker on this one is Wahid. Wahid, you have 90 seconds. Oh, remember your mute button.
Sometime. Well, it's very important that the Truth and Reconciliation report and the action plan must be implemented by Canada. And PIPS, as a union of public service, has a role in that. I'm personally already implementing one of the clauses that is related to educating and training public servants on the action, such as the item number 57 of the plan. PIPS is already implementing parts of it. We have taken action, but I think there is more to do. And this is not a short, quick fix. This is something that we have to not only implement, we have to participate. People have to know, Canadians have to know that one of the biggest complaints that the Indigenous people have was because the public service, the politicians, they are the ones who mistreated them. So we have a role to play, and it's for good, not only for Indigenous people, it is good for all of us. That's how we make a fair Canada. I hope I'm keeping the time now.
You are. Thank you, Wahid. Next up is Matt. Go ahead.
Thank you for that. I agree that the first place to start is acknowledging our own role. And to that end, I think it would be worthwhile devoting some resources to opening our own PIPS archives and proactively understanding how either us as an organization or our members may have contributed in various ways, because we have 100 years of records of an organization that we can help understand. We also have archivists who work for PIPS at Library and Archives and other places. And finally, like, our researchers often conduct research in areas that are contested and could perhaps do a much better job at understanding their obligations to the in a nation-to-nation sense when they're designing those research programs and making sure they're respectful and not further harming the people who live there. So yeah, I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of understanding how our own work and our role as representatives of the Crown plays out on this land. I'll leave it there.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Greg, you're up next.
Thank you, Miigwech. So 1000%, absolutely, yes, we need to have the Institute be engaged in truth and reconciliation. I've actually been doing this already for the last 4 years. As the PIP CLC Indigenous representative, I was very proud to actually go and work with the CLC for 12 weeks to hold the first ever Indigenous Lobby Day on Parliament Hill with other affiliates and unions from across Canada who came to Parliament back on April 1st of 2019 before COVID hit. One of the biggest things that we lobbied the government on is a understanding of national truth and reconciliation. And as most of you probably already aware, this coming September 30th, which is Orange Shirt Day, is absolutely going to be the very first national truth and reconciliation. So I'm very proud of the work that the CLC, myself, and other members of other affiliates have done to try and bring that to Canadians. We need to understand our truth. We need to understand our history. It is going to be painful. The TRC report, as other people have mentioned, are 94 calls to action. We need to make sure that all those 94 calls to action are in place. We also need to make sure that there's clean drinking water on all the reserves. The federal government actually said that that would be completed by 2020. Well, we're into 2021 and it's still not. So absolutely 100%, I pledge that I will make sure that we follow through on truth and reconciliation.
Time's up, Greg. Thank you. I hate to interrupt to such an impassioned plea. You're up next, Mark. Mark? Yeah,
Second.
okay.
Yes, we should definitely participate as best we can. Continue with any of the things that both Craig and Wahid discussed. I think we could do more. We should maybe communicate with the community leaders across Canada and have our members, engage our members to see if they could help at the regional and local levels out there, and provide funding for our members who might want to participate in events that help support the Indigenous struggle to get the truth out. I personally have been taking an online course that was recommended to me by members of PIPS through the University of Calgary, which I have got to tell you was a wake-up call for me, and I recommend it to everybody. I also took that to my employer, CRA, and I said, there's this really good course. I think we should put it on the learning plan, and they did. So it's one that's available for people to take if they want to take it. I've asked them to make it more than just want, strongly recommended, but these are steps we can take. And I think we need to do it together as a group of advisors to find all these little things that we can do to do more to get this message out. Because I got to tell you, after that course, I felt sad. I felt horrible about myself for not having known what I now know and growing up ignorant. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And we have Glenn up next. Your unmute button should be working now. You're still muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Kind of an interesting question in that I suspect, and as we've seen, everyone fully supports the issue. I sometimes question, or I think about, I wish there was more time in the week or in life, whether it's pride or Indigenous or Aboriginal issues, or whether it's any form of equality or fairness, collective bargaining. I worry about PIP staff, the whole shooting match. But yeah, much like everyone else, I fully support this. Oddly enough, and just a random thought, I picked up a book recently in a discount bin in chapters, and it had to do with social engineering in British colonies, and it goes back to 15, 16, 17, and 1800s, not so much French or Spanish. Holy smoke, it's an eye-opener. Humans can really do some inappropriate stuff, and I think it's going to be interesting to learn. I'm only just beginning to realize I don't understand what it was like to be a person in a British colony back in the 16, 17, and 18 and 1900s, early 1900s. Anyway, do I support it? Yes, much like all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Stacy, you're up next.
Participating in truth and reconciliation actions, 100% yes. What we could start with is actually acknowledging what part we played in the residential schools and acknowledging the fact that truth and reconciliation is important, not only to the Indigenous, but to all Canadians. A way that I think we could start is participating in activities, like on September 30th with the ceremony up on Parliament Hill, which I invite all NCR members to attend. I also think we should apologize to the leaders. And I also believe that we are already acknowledging the land that we are speaking on, where we attend our meetings. And I think that needs to continue from now and going on forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. And Dave.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of the statements. We definitely have a lot of work to do in this area. Looking inward first might be a good step. I look to our Human Rights and Diversity Committee, who has done a lot of work in this area already. And we have stood up an Indigenous caucus. I think we need to support these people, and allow them to guide us and make recommendations where possible. We have a lot of members within the Institute that can definitely help in this area. As Stacy mentioned, I encourage everyone to show up on Thursday and come out and support. That's one way I will be trying to learn more about this myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you to all the candidates for respecting your time. We're doing well for time. We're at midpoint at this point. Julie is going to send you the 2 last questions. And we are going to take a 5-minute bio break. So a 5-minute break just to breathe, move a little bit, ease the tension in the shoulders. I know I'm feeling it and I'm not even a candidate. Please do stay in the meeting room to our candidates and everybody else actually, but feel free to turn off your camera and microphone for those 5 minutes so you have a bit of privacy while we take a break. So 5-minute break. See you back here shortly. On prend 5 minutes.
The questions have been sent to you guys.